Good morning, folks. Another beautiful day in Nebraska. We got a big fire to build, so let's get started. So we picked up a burn permit yesterday over at the firehouse, and they're not hard to get here in Nebraska as long as it's not really dry, windy weather. And right now everything's super green and nothing's gonna burn. So the best time to do it. There's not a lot of restrictions here in Nebraska like there was where we came from. Out in California you couldn't burn anything, and only if you had an agricultural operation, and you even had to meet certain criteria, and it had to be a burn day, which isn't very often. So let's get the stuff we need to start our fire. I got a pretty good sized burn pile we need to do, and then probably while that burns we can probably do some planting in the garden, because today's a beautiful day, kind of on and off drizzle. It's a perfect day to plant out because you don't get a lot of crazy sunshine and a lot of heat. So the transplants have more opportunity to kind of settle in. But let's get this fire started first. Okay, we got our weed burner here stuck in the fire. Shouldn't take too long to get it going. Rolling pretty good now. We started it on the upwind side, so the wind will drive the fire through the pile. About a year's worth of brush over here. This stuff down on the back side of the pile is a lot older, so it'll burn pretty clean. We'll have to come back later after this burns down and kind of pitchfork the outside pieces into the middle so it's gone completely. Even though it's been raining off and on all morning, it took off pretty quick. About 5 minutes in here. It's already back to the other side of the pile. We're about 20 minutes in, and basically the pile's just burned down to the larger pieces of wood now. So it's going to take a couple hours before we can even get close enough to this thing to pitchfork some stuff in. I'm 30 feet away and it's almost too hot to stand here. So we're going to go down and address some garden issues, and we'll come back to this later. First thing we need to do is we need to get our flags back up. We've had a couple come loose from their anchor point here. And all these are the hot wire fence connectors here. So you just put your things through like that, but I always put a wire tie on here too, or a zip tie to hold them on. Okay, we got all of our flags straightened up out here. We were out here yesterday. My cousin's boy Tate came to help me. We mulched the whole rest of the garden rows out here, so we're ready to plant out. I ran the drip system yesterday afternoon for about 5 hours. So the moisture underneath the compost mulch there should be just about right to plant in. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go through, it's been about a week since we rototilled this. There's a few weeds that survived. They probably went down the center where the rototiller is, because right in the center the rototiller doesn't have any tines. So every now and then you'll get a weed poke up. Didn't quite get churned up. So it'll take me about 10 minutes to go through this whole garden with my trusty garden hoe and knock those out of the ground. And then we'll start getting some transplants out here. So we just met Freddie Jr. out here in the garden. Had Freddie Sr. out here last year eating bugs. But they hang out here in the garden. Take care of bugs. All right, that was super quick, maybe 10 minutes. And who doesn't have 10 minutes just to walk through their garden? Or who wouldn't just want to take 10 minutes and walk through their garden? It's very satisfying, and it's a nice getaway. Put in your earbuds, come out here, your AirPods, whatever they're called, and spend some time in your garden. So far, I'm extremely pleased with moving our drip lines, burying this section of them. It's been so nice to be able to run the rototiller through here, and like I said, we ran the water yesterday. It's not a big mud hole out here, so it's super cool. Very pleased with that. It was worth the time and the effort. You can see our squash plants out here have doubled in size other than this one here, but they're still green leaves. Like one branch off of it wilted, but that's still going to grow. The rest of them are looking real good. 6 plants is going to be a lot more zucchini than we need, but we take some to people and we make zucchini relish with it. And Kelly does have the dehydrator this year, so we'll definitely get some of that in the dehydrator. Or excuse me, the freeze dryer. I don't know why I always call it a dehydrator. We had 2 onions that overwintered. We missed the bulb when we were digging the onions, so they sprouted back up. We're going to keep these in the garden. There's another one over there if you can see it. But we'll use those for green onions, or just let them bulb up. We'll just leave them there in the row. So let's go over to the greenhouse and we'll see what's ready to come out here in the garden. Look at our wild plum here, or cherry, or whatever it is, in full bloom. Just beautiful blossoms. The bees come over here once they start stirring. Nearly all of the fruit trees are leafed out, growing excellent, with the exception of our peaches. I'm afraid we may have lost all 3 of our peach trees. I don't know if they just didn't survive the winter or what. This one's got one little cluster of leaves over here, so it can't be completely dead if it's doing that, but it should have leaves all over this tree by now. And then the other 2 aren't showing signs of anything. We thinned the carrots out the other day, so those are nice and thinned. We did a rethinning of our wasabi radish and our beets. We've got one more lick tub that's going to come over here, the one that's over, that has our herbs in it right now, over by the gazebo. We're going to swap it out with a whiskey barrel, so we'll have 4 tubs here along the side. And then we have a surprise for you. We'll be doing a video on it real soon. We have a raised box that we're going to put here right behind the greenhouse, and that's going to be the new home of our herbs. Let's see what's ready to go in here. It appears that everything is pretty much large enough to go out. Look at these beautiful tomatoes, folks. Aren't those gorgeous? They do so well in here in the greenhouse. Those are all large enough to go out. We're not going to be using all of these, but we're going to be using a good bunch of them. The ones in the larger cups we're going to leave in here for a while. We may let this broccoli get a little bit bigger, but I'm going to check the root ball on one of them, see if it's got a good root system. We'll go ahead and plant it out. Got a few more of our peppers sprout. Like, there's some hope, I guess. But we did buy some peppers at the store. And look at this asparagus. Kelly brought out the asparagus from the basement, and then the asparagus I started is all starting to come up. So we'll have plenty of asparagus to put out in our new asparagus row. And then these are Brussels sprouts, wrong time of year, but we're going to throw them out there anyway. These should be started in late fall to go into early winter, but we're going to throw them out in the garden and see what they do anyway. To show you how resilient tomato plants are, this one got thrown in here when I pulled some out of a cup, and it just took off and started growing all on its own here in our planting material bin here. Can't bring myself to pull it up. So I think we're going to start with our tomatoes. Last year we had our tomatoes in this row. In fact, I think we did them there a couple years because I didn't move the cattle panels last year. I just used them there again. and they're heavy feeders, so I don't want to put them back in this row. This is going to be our squash, watermelon, cantaloupe, so a lot of this stuff is going to sprawl out into the walk paths. So right next to it, we don't want stuff that's too bushy. We'll do like peppers and stuff like that. So I'll most likely do this row, because if I put them on the outside rows, those tomatoes can get so bushy that it makes it difficult to walk between the fence, because the outside rows aren't as wide. So I think we're going to go with this row right here. So I have my spare cattle panels leaned up against the fence, just wired to the fence. So we'll come lay these out so we know where to put our T-posts, and then we'll drive our T-posts in. We have our panels laid out, and we overlap our panels one section so they can fit both on the T-post. We've laid our T-post out on every intersection, plus one in the middle of every cattle panel. So now we're going to put our T-post in, and I'm doing it just with my little 3-pound sledgehammer. I have a T-post driver, but with the way my back feels, that sledgehammer feels a lot better. And this ground is so soft it goes right in. So whenever you're putting a T-post in, you want to put these nubs on the side that either your panel's going to be on or your wire's going to be on, because these little nubs are what keeps things from moving around. If you put it on the smooth side, that whatever you're putting on there can move around. Now, if you're doing cattle, you want the wire on the side that the cattle is going to be on. You don't want the wire on the other side, because it's easy for them to push it off. The wire's on this side, the wire gets pushed up against the stake. So just some helpful hints if you're doing this for cattle, but we're doing it for veggies, so it doesn't matter which side our panel is going to be on, we just got them on this side. So let's keep putting our T-posts in. We've got all our panels laid out. We're ready to clip them up on the T-post. All the T-posts are in. We're going to use these T-post clips right here. This is what they look like, and this is the tool that puts them on. We only had to buy the tool. We got the clips for free, and we'll tell you how to do that. So when our farm store gets in T-posts, all the bundles of T-posts comes with a bag of these clips. Well, all the farmers around here use hedge posts or wooden posts, and then they like a certain kind of nail to go on them, a staple, to where they can tighten up the wire. They don't drive it all the way deep into the post. So they don't take these clips because they don't have a use for them. So the farm store has these clips laying around. So check with your farm store. They may have bags and bags of these. And they said, take as many as you want. I could have had a whole pallet of these, but obviously I have no use for a whole pallet. So I just grabbed a couple broken bags to help them out so they weren't making a mess. And I got all my clips for free. These clips are real easy to use. You put them behind your T-post, and then it has one arm that clips over it already. Then you bring this one around and bend it under. We'll show you how to do it. So see how we got this one there? We bend that under like that, and then I just rotate around and then finish it out underneath. Now I'll come back later with a pair of pliers. I like bending these under just a little bit further on this side. And then I also go through, I stand them all up, check it for where I want it to intersect the post. And I do all my middle stakes first before I do any of the intersections, because it's easier to handle these from the middle than it is from one side or the other. So I just go through and I stand all 4 of them up, and then I come through and tie them together. I only use 2 metal clips per post. That's all you need. Anything more than that is way overkill. Are you ever quiet? Boy, makes it hard to fill the YouTube channel. Got our panels all in. I'm going to take a little break, go inside, get a bite to eat, and it's probably time to check on that fire. Here's our fire after about 3 hours, pretty much gone. So what I'll do is I'll take that log that's still flaming over there, put it over here on this big piece that's still sitting there, and then all this little stuff will just pile on there with a pitchfork and get that fire going around that log over there again. Alright, got everything all forked together here in one pile. Got some longer pieces sticking out that we'll have to fork up again later when it's about the size of a campfire. funny story about a burn pile like this. Well, I guess it's not too funny, but out where I live, they had the big almond orchards. And when they would prune the orchards, they'd have the humongous fires like this. And like 2 weeks later, me and my neighbor friend were running around barefooted back then. And we started walking in these ashes, and it felt really neat on our feet because it's real powdery. But we went out running through the ashes, and when we got to the middle, it was still hot. 2 weeks later, there was coals down in the bottom. Burnt the bottom of my feet bad. Had to go to the emergency room. That wasn't fun. Okay, let's get some of our beautiful tomato plants in the ground here. So I've decided I'm going to go plant one every 5 spaces. So I'll plant one like right here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then put one there, and so on and so on. I want to get as many San Marzanos in this row as I can, because if we have any issues this year, whatever little amount of tomatoes I get off of a plant, I want there to be more plants so we can have more tomatoes. Now, if we have a perfect growing season and we end up with all these tomatoes, guess what? We're going to be giving lots of tomatoes away. So let's get things going. Got our tomatoes all laid out along the row. It took exactly 1 flat of tomatoes, or 18 plants, the way we plant them. So we'll start poking these in the ground. Should be plenty moist because we ran the drip yesterday. Let's get them in. Pretty good root system on our tomatoes. They're not root bound. Some of the cups even had a few little roots coming out the bottom. But these are perfect, ready to go in the ground. Alrighty friends, we got all of our San Marzano tomatoes planted. Now, San Marzano, if you've never heard of them, are very similar to Romas. They're like a paste tomato, plum type tomato. The San Marzanos will kind of have like a pointed tip on the bottom, where a Roma will look more like a plum or egg-shaped with a rounded bottom. Now, these San Marzanos are indeterminate tomatoes, which means they keep growing as long as the season lasts, where most Roma tomatoes are a determinate tomato, where they grow to a certain size, about 3.5 feet tall, and they put on all their tomatoes at once, so you're harvesting all at once. Now, my thinking behind using the San Marzanos, if you remember our hailstorms last year, the indeterminate tomatoes came through just fine. They pushed out new shoots and they continued to grow, and we had plenty of like cherry tomatoes because those were the only indeterminates we had. We planted Romas last year, and because they were determinate, once they got the damage from the hail, in fact we got hailed on twice, they just really didn't put out anymore after that. So I'm hoping if these do get damaged, because we are prone to thunderstorms here in Nebraska and hail in the summer, I'm hoping if we do get some damage, they will continue to grow and we'll get plenty of tomatoes, which we need in the root cellar. So over here on our 2 trellises, usually I plant green beans, snow peas, stuff like that, anything that climbs. This year I still have green beans and stuff from last year in the freezer and in the root cellar. So I'm going to take my slicer tomatoes, which this year are the Bonnie Best that we're trying, and I'm going to plant 1 slicer tomato under each side of the trellis on both trellises, and then we can just train them to go up that trellis a little bit and use these supports, because otherwise I won't have any supports for these types of tomatoes. So we'll get these planted now. Okay, done and done. So if you've never grown tomatoes on hog panels, how this works is as the tomato grows, when it's sending out the runners, you just kind of tuck the runners through the hog panel back and forth, and then it supports itself on the panel. If something gets too long, don't try to bend it to get it go through, because tomato break really easy. Just tie it with one of those green wrap things, and then once it gets a little bit taller, tuck it through the next hole. Anything that grows like crazy out in the row, I just cut off, because you can prune tomatoes all year long, doesn't hurt them at all. So if there's one that's really unruly that I can't tie against or anything else, I'll just cut it, throw it over the fence. Well, I think I'm going to try to get some peppers planted. We're going to put peppers on our northernmost row this year where the onions were last year. I think we're going to start out with our bell peppers on this end, and then we'll go with our habaneros and then our jalapenos, because we have all those here. But I do have some jalapenos that have sprouted in the greenhouse, so by doing the jalapenos last, I can just continue those out wherever we leave off with these. We're planting our peppers in our little corn tunnel cages, so it gives them a little bit of support when they start getting taller. We get pretty strong winds here in Nebraska, and we had a couple plants blow over last year, because these grow more vertical than most everything else we grow in the garden besides the tomatoes. So I figured these could use the support the most, and as they grow in that cage will kind of hold everything together. Now what a corn tunnel is, these have been cut for this purpose, but these used to be really long, however long they needed them. And you would put these in a corn crib every so often, because the corn cobs with the kernels on them can't go through those slots. So it would create tunnels in the corn crib where the air could circulate, so your corn didn't go bad. This whole area out here was covered with corn cribs. I'll show you a picture of that. All of the peppers that are ready to go in are in, 18 of them, all the way down to there. So I think we're going to call it a day in the garden. So all we got left is to button up the greenhouse and go up and probably fork in our fire one more time. So let's go do that. Okay, nothing else in the greenhouse here is really pressing to get in the ground. Remember those two little puny zucchini plants that we repotted? Look at those things go. Holy smokes. But Brussels sprouts probably need to go out before they get leggy. But everything else is looking fine. We can wait for another good planting day. Putting some water into our lick tubs over here. Making sure they have some. It hasn't really rained enough to keep these too moist. Just got to wait for the water to run out of that little hole. Well, that's probably the last time we need to fork it together. That should burn all the way out now. We got a good clean burn out here. Really nice. Well, got a lot done today. Walking through the grass. My toes and my shoes aren't getting wet, so probably going to try to mow the grass before I go in. So we'll leave you right here. Looks like that rain may make it over here, so I want to get her done. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come back and see us here at the farm. We've got a little more to plant out in the garden and lots more to do.